As the German Sixth Army pushed into the ruins of Stalingrad, they stepped out of a conventional war and into a meat grinder. The city, shattered by weeks of relentless bombing, had been transformed into a defender's paradise. Confident of a swift victory, the German soldiers were about to learn that a city of rubble is far deadlier than a city of buildings. On September 13th, the first assault waves entered the ruins, and the battle immediately devolved into the most savage hand-to-hand fighting in human history. The Soviet commander, General Vasily Chuikov, had issued a simple, brutal order to his men: hug the Germans. By staying within a grenade's throw of the enemy, he neutralized Germany's greatest advantages: their artillery and air power. The battle for Stalingrad would not be decided by grand maneuvers, but by primitive hatred. The Germans gave it a name that perfectly captured the horror: Rattenkrieg, the Rats' War. The nature of combat changed completely. The long-range rifle, the staple of the infantryman, became a clumsy liability in the tight confines of shattered corridors and stairwells. The preferred tools of the Rattenkrieg became the short-range submachine gun, the pistol, the grenade, and, most brutally, the sharpened spade, which became a terrifyingly effective close-quarters weapon. One of the most feared weapons in this environment was the flamethrower, used to scorch any room or hiding spot suspected of containing enemies, roasting men alive in an instant inferno. Every engagement was random, unpredictable, and fought with a level of savagery that shocked even the most hardened veterans. The heart of this new war was the city's industrial district. A sprawling complex of massive factories, the Red October Steelworks, the Barricadi Arms Factory, and the Stalingrad Tractor Factory, became the epicenters of the fighting. These were not just buildings, they were cities within the city, a maze of workshops, cavernous assembly halls, and underground tunnels. Here, soldiers fought desperate battles on catwalks high above the factory floor, ambushed each other in the shadows of giant industrial presses, and hunted one another through a labyrinth of steam pipes and maintenance corridors. Control of a single workshop could change hands multiple times in a single day, each time at a staggering cost in human life. Before the factories, another fortress had to be taken: the city's massive grain elevator. This colossal concrete structure dominated the southern skyline. A small, isolated group of Soviet soldiers held this single building for weeks, using its thick walls for cover and its height to pour devastating fire down on the Germans below. The Germans assaulted it relentlessly with tanks, artillery, and infantry, but the defenders refused to yield, fighting for every floor, every silo, every room. When the Germans finally took the elevator, they found only a handful of exhausted, wounded defenders and heaps of the dead, a testament to the brutal cost of capturing even one objective in the city. This brutal slog was defined by a few iconic strongholds. One of the most famous was a simple 4-story apartment block that would become immortalized as Pavlov's house. Here, a single platoon of Soviet soldiers, led by Sergeant Yakov Pavlov, held this one building against constant, furious German assaults for 2 full months. Chuikov would later joke that the Germans lost more men trying to take Pavlov's house than they did on their entire march to Paris. The German panzers, the kings of the open steppe, found themselves impotent in this new environment. The mountains of rubble blocked their paths, funneling them into pre-prepared kill zones. The upper floors of ruined buildings, once a liability, now became perfect anti-tank positions for Soviet soldiers armed with anti-tank rifles and Molotov cocktails. A tank commander's greatest fear was to be isolated from his infantry support, where he would be vulnerable to a lone Soviet soldier running up from a blind spot and disabling his machine. The once mighty spearheads of the Blitzkrieg were reduced to slow-moving, vulnerable steel coffins. The incredible tenacity of the Soviet defenders was not just born of courage, it was enforced by terror. On July 28th, Stalin had issued Order Number 227, known by its infamous slogan, "Not one step back." The order dictated that any soldier who retreated without permission was to be considered a traitor. To enforce this, special blocking detachments from the NKVD secret police were placed behind the front lines, with orders to shoot any soldier or even entire units who tried to fall back. Thousands of Soviet soldiers were executed by their own side. For the men in the ruins, there was no escape. In front of them lay the Germans, behind them, a firing squad. In this environment of absolute terror, a new kind of soldier became a dominant force: the sniper. The endless fields of rubble provided perfect concealment, and Soviet snipers turned the city into a personal hunting ground. They became a psychological weapon, paralyzing German movement. No German soldier felt safe. Fetching water, carrying ammunition, or simply trying to rest became a death sentence. The ever-present threat of a single unseen bullet from a distant window added a layer of constant, nerve-shredding stress to the already horrific conditions of the battle. Every shadow and every pile of rubble could hide an instant and anonymous death. The city itself had become the true enemy. A German lieutenant colonel wrote that the streets were no longer measured by meters, but by corpses. By November, the average life expectancy for a newly arrived Soviet soldier was less than 24 hours. While the battle raged on the surface, a separate, even more primitive war was being fought in the pitch-black sewers. Platoons would move silently through the filth, only to collide with an enemy patrol, resulting in desperate, frenzied melees where men bludgeoned each other to death in total darkness. For the German soldier, this was a descent into madness. They had been trained for a war of rapid movement and decisive battles, not this claustrophobic subterranean nightmare. Letters home were filled with a sense of disbelief and horror. One soldier wrote, "The wounded lay in the snow calling for their mothers. This is not war anymore. It is primitive hatred." They had entered the city as conquerors, but the ruins were now consuming them, grinding down their bodies and their sanity, one bloody room at a time. But while the German Sixth Army was being bled white in the meat grinder, obsessed with capturing the last few yards of the city, they remained blind to the storm that was gathering outside. Chuikov's plan had worked. The Rats' War had not just savaged the Germans, it had bought the Soviet High Command their most precious commodity, time. And on the vast open plains to the north and south of Stalingrad, they had used that time to assemble a secret army of over 1 million men, ready to spring a trap of colossal proportions. The stage was now set for one of the most decisive and dramatic reversals in military history. If you want to see how the Soviets sprang their trap and sealed the fate of the German Sixth Army, make sure you are subscribed to our channel and have clicked the notification bell. Your support helps us continue to tell these vital stories.